Okay, wow. The football world, it feels like it's just been doing fireworks while we blinked.
Yep.
Clubs everywhere are making moves.
Yeah, it's been pretty intense. And what's really fascinating, looking at this stack of notes we have, is just how differently clubs are approaching things.
Right.
You've got some going for, the big established names, others really betting on youth, and then some clearly grappling with tactical shifts they need to make.
Absolutely. So today we're diving deep into this analysis, covering some heavy hitters. Barcelona, Real Madrid, Man United, Liverpool, AC Milan, Inter Milan, Al Hilal, Manchester City, the lot. And our mission, really, is to pull out the most important insights, maybe some surprising facts from these sources about what's going on in the transfer market and, well, what it says about their strategies.
Let's get into it.
Okay, let's unpack this. So the notes kind of set the scene first by looking at Milan, and what a tough season both clubs had.
Yeah, really difficult. AC Milan, the sources mentioned, changed coaches twice. Only picked up the Italian Super Cup, and then bang, out of the Champions League qualifiers really early.
And Inter, they were fighting on three fronts, but then that Champions League final.
Oof. Yeah, the analysis calls that loss to PSG maybe the biggest loss in final history.
Yeah.
Huge setback.
And this is where it gets really interesting, looking at the notes side by side, the difference in how they're reacting now.
Exactly. You see AC Milan's new sporting director. The source says he's dreaming of signing Luka Modric.
The legend, obviously, but, getting on a bit.
Right, a seasoned veteran. And then you contrast that with Inter.
Completely different.
Yeah, the materials suggest they're much more focused on younger players. They talk about Inter studying Rasmus Højlund from Man United really closely.
Ah, okay.
It implies a totally different strategy, like moving away from signing older guys.
Well, speaking of Inter, the sources are pretty clear that Simone Inzaghi, he's expected to be announced as the new Al Hilal coach, like, really soon. Within 24 hours, the notes suggest.
Yeah. Seems imminent. And there's this little detail in the analysis, kind of amusing.
The salary thing.
Yeah. Contrasting his Interraise, which was, 7 to 7.5 million sterling?
Peanuts, relatively speaking.
Compared to the huge numbers being thrown around for the Al Hilal job, it definitely puts things in perspective.
Sure does.
But the sources do acknowledge Inzaghi's strengths. He's known for creating good systems, building on what coaches like Conte left behind at Inter.
And he did well at Lazio, too.
Very successful there. But, and this is a big but in the analysis,
Okay.
there's a real question mark over whether he can manage in that Al Hilal environment. With all the high-quality players coming in, the massive spending.
It's a different ballgame.
Exactly. The source even draws a parallel to Massimiliano Allegri.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, suggesting that sometimes, for certain coaches, having more resources doesn't actually lead to more success. Maybe even the opposite compared to when they had less to work with.
And Al Hilal really needs a reset. The notes describe last season as just bad experiences, injuries, players missing.
Failures, basically.
Yeah. And their first big test, likely under Inzaghi, is Real Madrid in the Club World Cup.
Huge pressure. The sources emphasize they just cannot afford another poor showing after such a tough year.
So what about their transfer targets? The notes seem to pour some cold water on a few big names.
They do. Bruno Fernandes, for instance. Apparently there was serious talk, but the source says it's not a priority now. His family, and then Bruno himself, basically said no to Saudi Arabia.
Wants to stay in Europe? Makes sense.
Yeah. And similarly, Ederson from Atalanta. Good player, adds depth, sure.
But not the main issue.
Exactly. The analysis is really clear. Al Hilal's absolute #1 priority has to be the defense.
The whole line.
The entire defensive line needs changing, according to the source. Koulibaly had a poor season, apparently. Tambakti wasn't consistent.
Then Al Balai.
Seen as well past his best. Plus issues with the fullbacks, too. It's a big job.
And then there's the Theo Hernandez rumor, AC Milan's left back.
Yeah. Swirling around. The sources even suggest terms might be agreed between the clubs.
But the player needs to say yes.
Right. And the analysis here is actually quite strong. It hopes he doesn't go.
Really? Why is that?
Feels the Al Hilal environment isn't right for players described as moody, and that his on-field problems maybe outweigh the flashy social media stuff.
Okay. Fair point.
And if that doesn't happen, the notes suggest an alternative, Alvaro Carreras from Benfica
Mm-hmm.
as another European left-back option.
Got it. Okay. Let's shift over to La Liga. Barcelona. Big changes potentially there too. Goalkeeper situation seems key.
Very key.
Yeah.
The sources highlight they're seriously looking at Juan Garcia, Spanish keeper, 24 from Espanyol.
And what's the profile there? Espanyol had a tough season.
Exactly. That's what's interesting in the notes. He played under constant pressure, average possession like below 40%.
Wow.
But he still got 8 clean sheets. La Liga goalkeeper of the week 7 times. The source praises him massively. Great shot stopper, brilliant with crosses.
How does that compare to Ter Stegen? Because his distribution is usually highlighted.
Right. The analysis points that out. Ter Stegen's stats often look more like a midfielder's, great passing, long balls.
Whereas Garcia is more purely defensive metrics.
Exactly. And this is where it connects to Hansi Flick. The source suggests this profile might actually align better with Flick's priorities.
How so?
Well, they recall how close Szczesny got to a Champions League final under Flick. And Szczesny isn't exactly known for his amazing passing range.
Ah, interesting angle. So this implies someone's leaving.
Most likely, yeah. Either Ter Stegen or Szczesny. The source actually hopes it's Ter Stegen who goes.
Okay.
And they expect Iñaki Peña would then be the third choice.
Makes sense. And beyond the keeper, the sources say they need help on the left wing.
Definitely. A clear need identified. The notes mention a few potential targets. Marcus Rashford,
From United, wow,
Luis Diaz from Liverpool, and Kingsley Coman from Bayern.
quite the list. How does the analysis rank them for Flick?
Well, Coman comes out on top. If he's available, obviously, because he's worked with Flick before.
Knows the system.
Language skills, connection with Lewandowski still,
Yeah.
all ticks boxes. Rashford is second. Apparently willing to take a pay cut, but, language barriers, maybe some risk factors involved. And Diaz is third, mainly because of the price.
Ah, Liverpool would want top dollar.
Yeah, the source estimate's around 60 million euros, so maybe less likely.
Okay, let's cross the channel to Manchester United. The notes suggest they're maybe moving in the right direction. Signings matching Ruben Amorim's potential style.
Yeah, that's the suggestion. They brought in Matheus Cunha and Brian Mbeumo.
Mbeumo was linked everywhere.
He really was highly sought after. But the analysis also flags up that familiar issue with United.
Uh-oh. What's that?
They just seem to, complicate things right when they're close to fixing a problem.
Give me an example.
The source mentions needing a specific striker under Solskjaer, but getting older players instead. Or the whole Harry Kane situation.
Right, not signing him.
And then those problems just kind of spread through the team under Ten Hag. It's a pattern, the analysis suggests.
And Cunha and Mbeumo? Good players, obviously.
Excellent players, yeah, but performed really well in, let's say, less pressured environments. Mbeumo at Brentford, Cunha at Wolves.
So its question is...
Exactly. The material asks, can they handle the sheer pressure, the expectation at a club like United? Especially when the target has to be Champions League qualification next season.
Talent's there, but will the environment bring out the best?
That's the doubt raised in the notes, yeah.
Okay, over to their rivals, Liverpool. Challenges there, too, according to the sources. Kelleher's gone.
Yeah, second keeper off to Brentford. Alex McCarthy's come in as the backup.
But the big one is Florian Wirtz, right? The Leverkusen star.
Oh, absolutely. That's the main saga highlighted. Liverpool apparently offered 120 million euros.
Serious money.
Huge money. But Leverkusen wants at least 150 million. And the feeling from the source is they're just trying to maximize that price tag.
So the deal might be tricky.
Very tricky. The analysis has this vibe that it could fall through or maybe get snatched by another rich club.
Like we've seen before.
Exactly. Like City reportedly backed off because of the price already. It feels a bit fragile.
And even if they get him, where does he fit? Liverpool's midfield is pretty settled.
That's the other big question the source grapples with. Who makes way? Who gets sacrificed?
So maybe a tactical change?
That's the speculation in the material. Maybe we see Salah playing more as a proper number 9 next season.
Ooh, interesting.
Which could free up that right side for someone like Jeremy Frimpong, who's also been linked.
Right, the Leverkusen wingback.
Yeah, and then Wirtz could be more of a roaming player, drifting between midfield and the wing, creating space for Salah centrally.
It's not really a false 9?
The source doesn't think so, based on how he's played behind strikers before. But yeah, it's all hypothetical.
We'll have to wait and see if the deal even happens and then what Arne Slot actually does. Lots of moving parts.
Definitely. Now, Manchester City. The sources seem quite impressed with their approach this summer.
In what way?
particularly the shift away from using those inverted wingbacks all the time.
Ah, players tucking inside.
Yeah, toward signing actual, natural, traditional fullbacks.
True.
Ryan Nuri from Wolves is mentioned as a potential left back.
Yeah.
Praised for being positive, brave, really drives forward.
Okay.
But the real excitement in the analysis is around Tino Livramento from Newcastle for the right back spot.
Heard a lot about him.
The source calls him one of the best defensive players in the league. A total defensive package.
High praise.
Seriously. Says he can play right back, left back, center back, even defensive midfield if needed. Sees him as someone who could lock down that right back position for years.
Wow. And they're looking at midfield, too. The notes mention some colorful descriptions.
Yeah, the source felt their midfield, apart from Rodri and maybe Nico Gonzalez when he played, lacked really clear roles. Described them as half tiger, half donkey.
Okay. I get the picture. Not quite defined enough.
Exactly. So targets like Tijani Reinders and Ray and Cherky.
Yeah.
They're seen as bringing those specific offensive qualities City needs. It marks a potentially strong new phase for their midfield.
Interesting. Lots of strategic moves there. Now, Real Madrid, the notes suggest they have your favorite approach.
Yeah, I mean, based purely on the analysis here, it's really compelling. They seem laser-focused on lowering the average age.
Right.
And just strengthening those core building blocks for the future. The notes even kind of hint this might be linked to, like future plans involving Xavi Alonso, even though Ancelotti's there now.
No one thinking? And Nico Paz is coming back?
Expected to, yeah. Using that €8 million buyback from Como, seen as just bolstering that young core they have.
But the really eye-catching one, this young Moroccan kid.
Abdullah Lejdan, 16 years old, from Ajax's academy, described in the source as a Moroccan jewel.
And he was player of the tournament at the U17 AFCON.
Best player, yeah. And the analysis just loves this potential move, sees it as part of this bigger trend, top clubs signing talents at 16, 17, 18.
The source even asks, could he be the next Hakimi?
That's the exciting question posed. And it highlights the quality coming out of the Moroccan academy system.
Which maybe doesn't get enough credit in Europe.
That's the feeling in the material. Producing these gems in the U21s, U17s, Olympic teams, they point to Bilal El Khanous playing in the Senior World Cup at 18.
Incredible.
So the hope expressed in the notes is that if Lejdan makes this move to Real Madrid, maybe it opens the door for more young Moroccan talents to get big moves early.
Could be a really enriching thing.
A beneficial experiment, as the source puts it, yeah.
So, wrapping this all up, what's the big picture from this deep dive into the sources? We've seen clubs facing different challenges.
Definitely. Pursuing really contrasting strategies, veterans versus youth.
Grappling with some massive price tags.
And clearly looking towards youth development, not just big signings. It really just underlines how dynamic the market is.
You know, all the strategic thinking going on behind the scenes to fix weaknesses and, build for whatever's next.
Whether that's through superstars, specific tactical fits, or these really exciting young prospects.
It's a fascinating snapshot of how these clubs are positioning themselves right now.
Absolutely. And I guess based on everything we've touched on from the sources, it makes you wonder which of these strategies or maybe which potential transfer do you find the most compelling or maybe the most worrying?
Yeah, definitely something to chew on. We hope this deep dive has given you some food for thought on the whirlwind that is the current football landscape.